uses more electricity than Nelson, who lives in a modern house in South Africa. Men receive more higher education than women, therefore drive. Jane Smart has less higher education than Mr. Bill Buffoon. Minorities get paid less than whites in America. Therefore, the black CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company gets paid less than the white janitor who cleans his office. Fallacy. False dilemma. Also known as black and white thinking. Description of false dilemma. A false dilemma is a fallacy in which a person uses the following pattern of reasoning. Either claim X is true or claim Y is true, when X and Y could both be false. Claim Y is false. Therefore claim X is true. This line of reasoning is fallacious because if both claims could be false, then it cannot be inferred that one is true because the other is false. That this is the case is made clear by the following example. Either 1 plus 1 equals 4 or 1 plus 1 equals 12. It is not the case that 1 plus 1 equals 4. Therefore 1 plus 1 equals 12. In cases in which the two options are, in fact, the only two options, this line of reasoning is not fallacious. For example, Bill is dead or he is alive. Bill is not dead. Therefore Bill is alive. Examples of false dilemma. Senator Jill. We have to cut education funding this year. Senator Bill. Why? Senator Jill. Well, either we cut the social programs or we live with a huge deficit and we can't live with the deficit. Bill. Jill and I both support having prayer in public schools. Jill. Hey, I never said that. Bill. You're not an atheist, you Jill. Look, you are going to have to make up your mind. Either you decide that you can afford this stereo, or you decide you are going to do without music for a while. Fallacy. Gambler's fallacy. Description of gambler's fallacy. The gambler's fallacy is committed when a person assumes that a departure from what occurs on average or in the long term will be corrected in the short term. The form of the fallacy is as follows. X has happened. X departs from what is expected to occur on average or over the long term. Therefore, X will come to an end soon. There are two common ways this fallacy is committed. In both cases, a person is assuming that some result must be due simply because what has previously happened departs from what would be expected on average or over the long term. The first involves events whose probabilities of occurring are independent of one another. For example, one toss of a fair, two sides, non-loaded coin does not affect the next toss of the coin. So, each time the coin is tossed there is, ideally, a 50% chance of it landing heads and a 50% chance of it landing tails. Suppose that a person tosses a coin 6 times and gets a head each time. If he concludes that the next toss will be tails because tails is due, then he will have committed the gambler's fallacy. This is because the results of previous tosses have no bearing on the outcome of the 7th toss. It has a 50% chance of being heads and a 50% chance of being tails, just like any other toss. The second involves cases whose probabilities of occurring are not independent of one another. For example, suppose that a boxer has won 50% of his fights over the past 2 years. Suppose that after several fights he has won 50% of his matches this year, that he has lost his last 6 fights and he has 6 left. If a person believed that he would win his next 6 fights because he has used up his losses and is due for a victory, then he would have committed the gambler's fallacy. After all, the person would be ignoring the fact that the results of one match can influence the results of the next one. For example, the boxer might have been injured in one match, which would lower his chances of winning his last 6 fights. It should be noted that not all predictions about what is likely to occur are fallacious. If a person has good evidence for his predictions, then they will be reasonable to accept. For example, if a person tosses a fair coin and gets 9 heads in a row, it would be reasonable for him to conclude that he will probably not get another 9 in a row again. This reasoning would not be fallacious as long as he believed his conclusion because of an understanding of the laws of probability. In this case, if he concluded that he would not get another 9 heads in a row because the odds of getting 9 heads in a row are lower than getting fewer than 9 heads in a row, then his reasoning would be good and his conclusion would be justified. Hence, determining whether or not the gambler's fallacy is being committed often requires some basic understanding of the laws of probability. Examples of gambler's fallacy. Bill is playing against Doug in a World War II tank battle game. Doug has had a great streak of luck and has been killing Bill's tanks left and right with good eye rolls. Bill, who has a few tanks left, decides to risk all in a desperate attack on Doug. He is a bit worried that Doug might wipe him out, but he thinks that since Doug's luck at rolling has been great, Doug must be due for some bad dice rolls. Bill launches his attack and Doug butchers his forces. Jane and Bill are talking. Jane: I'll be able to buy that car I always wanted soon. Bill: Why, did you get a raise? Jane: No. But you know how I've been playing the lottery all these years? Bill: Yes, you buy a ticket for every drawing, without fail. Jane: And I've lost every time. Bill: So why do you think you will win this time? Jane: Well, after all those losses I am due for a win. Joe and Sam are at the racetrack betting on horses. Joe: You see that horse over there? He lost his last 4 races. I am going to bet on him. Sam: Why? I think he will probably lose. Joe: No way, Sam. I looked up the horse's stats and he has won half his races in the past 2 years. Since he has lost 3 of his last 4 races, he'll have to win this race. So I am betting the farm on him. Sam: Are you sure? Joe: Of course I am sure. That pony is due, man. Hes due. Fallacy. Genetic fallacy. Description of genetic fallacy. A genetic fallacy is a line of reasoning in which a perceived defect in the origin of a claim or thing is taken to be evidence that discredits the claim or thing itself. It is also a line of reasoning in which the origin of a claim or thing is taken to be evidence for the claim or thing. This sort of reasoning has the following form. The origin of a claim or thing is presented. The claim is true, or false, or the thing is supported, or discredited. It is clear that sort of reasoning is fallacious. For example, Bill claims that 1 + 1 = 2. However, my parents brought me up to believe that 1 + 1 = 254, so Bill must be wrong. It should be noted that there are some cases in which the origin of a claim is relevant to the truth or falsity of the claim. For example, a claim that comes from a reliable expert is likely to be true, provided it is in her area of expertise. Examples of genetic fallacy. The current Chancellor of Germany was in the Hitler Youth at age 3. With that sort of background, his so-called reform plan must be a fascist program. I was brought up to believe in God, and my parents told me God exists, so he must. Sure, the media claims that Senator Bedfellow was taking kickbacks. But we all know about the media's credibility, don't we?